The night was cold and dark when Danny Cole drove his old truck down the empty highway. He had been working late at the garage, fixing an old tractor for a farmer who needed it by morning. His hands still smelled like oil and grease. The radio played soft country music, and Danny hummed along as the headlights cut through the darkness. Montana was quiet at this hour. The roads were empty and the only light came from the stars above. Danny liked these late-night drives. They gave him time to think, time to breathe. Life had been simple since he left the army 3 years ago. He fixed machines, helped his neighbors, and lived alone in his grandfather's old farmhouse. It was a good life, a peaceful life. Then he saw it. A bright light streaked across the sky like a falling star, but it was too big, too fast, too close. Danny slammed on his brakes and watched as the object crashed into the forest about half a mile from the road. The ground shook. A loud boom echoed through the night. Then there was silence. Danny sat in his truck for a long moment. His heart was beating fast. His mind told him to drive away, to call someone, to let the government handle whatever had just fallen from the sky. But something else, something deeper, told him to go look. Maybe someone needed help. He grabbed his flashlight from the glove box and stepped out into the cold air. The forest was dark and thick with trees, but he could see a faint glow coming from the direction of the crash. He walked toward it, his boots crunching on fallen leaves and broken branches. What he found changed his life forever. A small spacecraft lay half buried in the earth. It was shaped like nothing Danny had ever seen, smooth and silver, with strange markings on its surface. Smoke rose from cracks in the hull. The metal was bent and torn in places, and a strange blue liquid leaked onto the ground. Danny approached slowly. He had seen a lot of strange things in his life, but this was different. This was impossible, yet here it was, real and solid, right in front of him. He found an opening in the side of the craft, a door that had been forced open by the impact. Danny shined his flashlight inside and saw her. She was humanoid, but clearly not human. Her skin was a pale silver color that seemed to shimmer in the light. Her hair was long and dark, almost black, and her face was beautiful in a strange and alien way. She wore some kind of uniform, dark blue with golden patterns, but the uniform was torn and Danny could see wounds on her body. She was bleeding, but her blood was not red. It was copper-colored like liquid metal. She was unconscious and barely breathing. Danny's training kicked in automatically. He had been a medic in the army. He had seen injured people before, had saved lives in places far from any hospital. He did not think about what she was or where she came from. He only thought about what he needed to do. He checked her breathing first. It was shallow but steady. Then he looked at her wounds. There was a deep cut on her side and several smaller cuts on her arms and legs. Something had attacked her, he realized. These were not just crash injuries. Some of these wounds looked like they came from weapons. Danny did not have his medical kit with him, but he always kept some basic supplies in his truck. He ran back, grabbed what he needed, and returned to the crashed ship. Working quickly, he cleaned her wounds as best he could and wrapped them with bandages. Her physiology was different from humans, but not so different that basic first aid would not help. The night grew colder. Danny knew he could not leave her here. She would freeze or bleed out before morning. He also knew that if he called the police or the military, they would take her away. They would put her in some secret facility and study her like an animal. Danny had seen how governments treated things they did not understand. He made his decision. Carefully, gently, he lifted her from the wreckage. She was lighter than he expected, almost weightless in his arms. He carried her through the forest to his truck and laid her down in the back seat. Then he drove home as fast as he dared. His farmhouse was old but warm. Danny laid the alien woman on his guest bed and started a fire in the fireplace. He worked through the night, checking her wounds, changing her bandages, and monitoring her breathing. He did not sleep. He did not eat. He simply watched over her and waited. Sometime before dawn, she opened her eyes. They were violet, bright and deep, like looking into a purple sunset. She stared at Danny with fear and confusion. Her body tensed, and she tried to move, but the pain stopped her. She spoke in a language Danny could not understand, words that sounded like music and thunder mixed together. Danny raised his hand slowly to show he meant no harm. "Easy," he said softly. "You're safe. I'm not going to hurt you." She did not understand his words, but she seemed to understand his tone. Slowly, she relaxed, though her eyes never left his face. She was studying him, trying to figure out what he was and why he had helped her. A small device on her wrist began to glow and make soft sounds. Danny watched as strange symbols appeared on its surface. The device seemed to be working on something, processing information. After several minutes, the alien woman spoke again, and this time Danny understood. "You saved me," she said. Her voice was weak but clear. The device on her wrist was translating her words into English. "Why?" Danny thought about the question. He thought about all the reasons he could give, all the explanations that might make sense. But in the end, he just shrugged and told her the truth. Seemed like the right thing to do. She stared at him for a long moment. Something changed in her eyes, something Danny could not quite name. It might have been surprise, it might have been gratitude, it might have been something else entirely. "My name is," she said finally. "I am grateful." Danny nodded and gave her a small smile. "I'm Danny. You should rest now. We can talk more in the morning." Watched him for another moment, then closed her eyes. Within seconds, she was asleep. Danny sat in a chair beside the bed and watched the sun rise through the window. He did not know what tomorrow would bring. He did not know what he had gotten himself into. But as he looked at the sleeping alien princess in his guest room, he felt strangely calm. Whatever happened next, he had done the right thing. And that was enough. 3 days passed and grew stronger. Danny changed her bandages twice a day and made sure she ate and drank. Her body healed faster than any human could, which amazed him. Wounds that should have taken weeks to close were already starting to fade. During those 3 days, they talked. Her translation device worked better each day, learning more English words and phrases. She asked Danny many questions about Earth, about humans, about his life. He answered honestly and simply. In return, she began to tell him about herself. What she told him was almost too much to believe. Was not just any alien. She was a princess, the crown princess of something called the Empire. Her people ruled over hundreds of star systems and thousands of planets. They had been traveling through space for millions of years, building one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. "I was traveling in secret," she explained one evening as they sat by the fire. "There are people in my empire who do not want me to take the throne. They sent assassins to kill me. They attacked my ship and I fled. I did not choose to come to your planet. My navigation was damaged and this was the closest world." Danny listened quietly. He was just a mechanic from Montana. He fixed tractors and trucks. Now he was sitting in his living room with an alien princess who ruled over more worlds than he could imagine. "Your people," continued, "we have been watching you for a long time. Earth is, how do you say, primitive to us. My council believes humans are too violent, too chaotic. They think you are not ready to know about us." "They might be right," Danny admitted. "We're not perfect." Looked at him with those violet eyes. "No, but you saved me. You did not call your authorities. You did not try to use me for your own gain. You simply helped me because it was right. That is not primitive, Danny. That is noble." Danny felt uncomfortable with her words. He was not used to being called noble. He was just a regular guy who did what anyone should do. On the 4th day, his sister came to visit. She was a nurse at a hospital 2 hours away and often stopped by on her days off to check on Danny. When she walked through the front door and found an alien woman sitting at the kitchen table, she screamed so loud that birds flew away from nearby trees. It took an hour to calm her down and explain everything. Was scared at first, then confused, then fascinated. Her medical training made her curious about physiology. She asked 100 questions and answered them all with patience. "Her healing rate is incredible," said to Danny later that night while rested. "Her cellular structure is completely different from ours. She should be dead from those wounds, but she's almost fully recovered." "Can you help her?" Danny asked. Nodded. "I can do more than you did. No offense, but your first aid was a bit rough." Danny smiled. "None taken." With help's recovery became even faster. The two women quickly became friends, introduced to human food, and the princess discovered that she loved coffee and hated. They watched movies together and talked about their lives. For a few days, it almost felt normal. But normal did not last. On the seventh night, Danny woke to the sound of something moving outside. He had spent years in combat zones, and his instincts were still sharp. He knew the difference between an animal walking through the woods and something else. This was something else. He grabbed his rifle from the closet and looked out the window. Two figures were moving through the darkness toward the farmhouse. They were tall and thin, dressed in black, and they moved in ways that no human could. They seemed to glide rather than walk. Assassins, they had found her. Danny moved quickly and quietly. He woke and told them to hide in the basement. His face went pale when she understood what was happening. "They will kill everyone here," she whispered. "Danny, you cannot fight them. They are trained warriors." "Maybe," Danny said, "but this is my home, and I don't let anyone hurt people under my roof." He went outside before they could argue. The Montana wilderness was Danny's territory. He had hunted these woods since he was a boy. He knew every tree, every hill, every stream. The assassins might be trained warriors, but they did not know this land. Danny did. He moved through the darkness like a ghost. He set traps using what he had learned from years of hunting and years of war. Trip wires connected to noisemakers. Fake trails that led nowhere. Hidden positions where he could see without being seen. The first assassin walked right into his trap. A wire caught his leg, and before he could react, Danny was on him. They fought in the darkness, and the alien was strong, stronger than any human. But Danny was smart. He used the environment, the trees, the uneven ground. He fought dirty, the way he had learned to fight in places where rules did not exist. When the first assassin fell, Danny did not stop to celebrate. He moved on to find the second. This one was more careful. She had heard the fight and knew something was wrong. Danny tracked her through the forest, staying downwind, moving slowly. When he finally found her, she was standing in a small clearing, looking around with confusion. She did not understand how a primitive human could have defeated her partner. She did not understand how he could be hunting her. In her mind, humans were weak creatures who posed no threat. That was her mistake. Danny attacked from behind. The fight was brutal and short. She was faster than him, but he was more desperate. This was his home. His sister was hiding in the basement. A woman he had promised to protect was counting on him. He could not lose. He did not lose. When it was over, Danny stood alone in the forest, breathing hard. His body ached from a dozen cuts and bruises. Blood ran down his face from a wound on his forehead. But he was alive, and the assassins were not. He walked back to the farmhouse and found and waiting by the door. They had heard the fighting and had come up from the basement. Stared at Danny with wide eyes, her mouth open in shock. "You killed them," she said. "Both of them. Warriors trained since childhood, and you. How?" Danny wiped the blood from his face. His hands were shaking slightly, the aftermath of adrenaline fatting from his body. He looked at the princess and gave her a tired smile. "Humans are pretty good at surviving," he said. "It's kind of our thing." Ran to her brother and hugged him tight. She was crying, but she was also laughing with relief. Danny held her and looked over her shoulder. The princess was looking at him differently now. Something had changed in her eyes. It was the look of someone who had just realized that everything they believed was wrong. Humans were not primitive, they were not weak, they were something else entirely. And was beginning to understand what that meant. Weeks passed, and life at the farmhouse found a strange kind of normal. Emergency beacon was damaged beyond repair, so she could not call her people. All she could do was wait and hope that someone would come looking for her. Until then, she was stuck on Earth, in a small house in Montana, with two humans who had become her only friends. Danny buried the bodies of the assassins deep in the forest where no one would find them. He did not enjoy killing, but he did not regret it either. Those creatures had come to murder an innocent woman. They had gotten what they deserved. As the days turned into weeks, Danny found himself enjoying company. She was curious about everything. She asked questions about the simplest things, like why the sky was blue and why birds sang in the morning. She had traveled across the galaxy, seen wonders that Danny could not imagine, yet she found magic in a sunset over the mountains. One afternoon, Danny took her fishing at the small lake behind his property. Had never fished before. Her people did not need to hunt or gather food. Everything was provided by machines and technology. The idea of catching your own meal seemed strange to her at first. But when she felt the first tug on her line and pulled up a small trout, her face lit up with pure joy. She laughed like a child, holding the fish in her hands, looking at it with wonder. "I caught it," she said, amazed. "I actually caught it myself." Danny smiled. "You did. Now I'll show you how to cook it." That night they ate fish that had caught herself, cooked over an open fire behind the house. Joined them, bringing bottles of cheap wine from the store in town. They sat under the stars and talked for hours. Told them about her life as a princess. She had grown up in a palace bigger than most cities, surrounded by servants and guards and teachers. She had learned politics and diplomacy and the history of 1,000 worlds, but she had never had real friends. Everyone around her wanted something from her. Everyone saw her as a tool to be used for power. "You two are the first people who have ever just liked me," she admitted quietly. "Not because of what I can give you, not because of my title, just because." Reached over and took's hand. "That's what friends do," she said simply. Danny said nothing, but he nodded in agreement. He understood loneliness better than most. After leaving the army, he had spent years alone, struggling to connect with people who could not understand what he had seen and done. Finding friendship with an alien princess seemed absurd, but somehow it felt right. As the weeks continued, began to change. The proud, distant Princess Danny had first met slowly disappeared. In her place emerged someone warmer, someone more open. She smiled more. She laughed more. She even tried to help with chores around the farm, though she was terrible at most of them. One evening, Danny found her in the barn, trying to fix a broken fence post. She had seen him do it once and was attempting to copy his movements. The result was a disaster. Nails were bent everywhere, and the post was leaning at an impossible angle. Danny laughed, and Silver Cheeks turned slightly purple with embarrassment. "I wanted to help," she said defensively. "I appreciate that," Danny said, still smiling. "But maybe stick to things that don't involve hammers." She glared at him, but there was no real anger in her eyes. After a moment, she started laughing too. They stood there in the barn, laughing together, and Danny realized that he had not felt this happy in years. But not everything was light and joy. Also shared darker truths about her empire. They had watched Earth for centuries. They had observed humanity from a distance, studying us like scientists study insects. In their eyes, humans were interesting but ultimately primitive, too violent, too divided, too short-lived. The Empire had a process called assessment that would decide Earth's future. If humans passed, they would be welcomed as partners. If they failed, they would be absorbed, controlled, turned into servants of the Empire. The assessment was supposed to happen in about 100 of your years, explained one night. "My council believes humans will fail. They think your people are too chaotic to be trusted." Danny felt cold at her words. "What do you think?" Was quiet for a long moment. She looked out the window at the dark fields beyond. "I used to agree with them," she said finally. "Everything I learned told me that humans were dangerous and unworthy, but now," she turned to look at Danny, "now I have seen something different. You found me dying in the woods. You could have turned me over to your government and become famous. You could have demanded rewards or power. Instead, you carried me into your home and cared for me like I was family." She paused, her voice growing softer. "And when the assassins came, you could have hidden. You could have let them take me to save yourself and your sister, but you fought for me. You risked everything for someone you barely knew, someone from a species that considers your people inferior." Danny shifted uncomfortably. He was not good at receiving praise. "I just did what anyone would do," he said. "No," said firmly. "You did what a good person would do, and that is rare, Danny. That is rare in any species on any world." The fire crackled softly between them. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees. "When I become empress," said, "I will remember this. I will remember you, and I will make sure my people see what I have seen." Danny did not know what to say. He was just a mechanic from a small town. The idea that he could change the fate of his entire species seemed impossible. But looking at the determination in her violet eyes, he believed her. Came in from the kitchen carrying 3 cups of hot chocolate. She handed them out and sat down with a happy sigh. "What are you two talking about so seriously?" she asked. "The future," said simply. Raised her cup. "Well, whatever the future holds, right now we have chocolate and a warm fire. That's good enough for me." Smiled and raised her cup as well. Danny joined them, and they drank together in comfortable silence. Outside, the stars shone bright and cold. Somewhere out there, an empire waited. But in this small farmhouse in Montana, 3 friends had found something more valuable than any empire could offer. They had found each other. And for now, that was enough. The day the sky changed, Danny was in the barn fixing an old generator. He heard scream from inside the house and ran to see what was wrong. When he got outside, he stopped and stared up at the sky like everyone else on Earth was doing at that exact moment. Ships, massive ships bigger than anything humans had ever built, hung in the sky like dark clouds. There were dozens of them blocking out the sun, casting shadows over the land. They did not move. They did not make sounds. They simply waited, watching, silent and terrible. Came out of the house and stood beside Danny. Her face was calm, but her hands were shaking slightly. "My people," she said quietly, "they have come for me." Across the world, chaos erupted. News channels showed footage of the ships hovering over every major city. Governments scrambled to respond. Military forces prepared for war. People ran through the streets in panic, not knowing if this was the end of everything they knew. Danny watched the news on his old television, seeing images of soldiers and tanks and jets circling the alien ships. It all seemed so small compared to those massive vessels. "Will they attack?" he asked. She shook her head. "They are here for me, not for conquest, but they do not know I am safe. If they cannot find me soon, they might become nervous." Danny understood what she meant. A nervous alien fleet with enough firepower to destroy the planet was not something anyone wanted. "Then we need to let them know where you are," he said. Nodded. She had been trying to repair her communication device for weeks without success. But now, with the fleet so close, even a weak signal might be enough. She worked through the night, and by morning she had managed to send a short message with her location. The response came within hours. A shuttle descended from the largest ship and flew straight toward Montana. Danny watched it approach, a sleek silver craft that made human aircraft look like toys. It landed in his wheat field, flattening a large circle of crops. The ground shook, and the air filled with a strange humming sound. Danny put on his boots, grabbed his coffee, and walked out onto his porch. Stood beside him, dressed in clothes had given her since her uniform was destroyed. She looked nervous for the first time since Danny had known her. The shuttle's door opened, and figures emerged. They were tall and silver-skinned-like, but they wore elaborate uniforms covered with medals and symbols of rank. At their head was an older male with a stern face and cold eyes. This was Ambassador, one of the highest diplomats in the Empire. Walked toward the farmhouse with long, confident steps. Behind him came a dozen guards, each carrying weapons that Danny could not identify. They looked at Danny and like they were looking at insects, small and unimportant. When saw, his expression changed. Relief, then confusion, then something like anger crossed his face. "Your Highness," he said, bowing deeply, "we have been searching for you for weeks. We feared the worst." "I am well," replied. Her voice had changed, becoming more formal, more royal. She was no longer the woman who laughed while fishing and complained about. She was a princess again. "Who are these creatures?" asked, looking at Danny and with obvious distaste. "These are the people who saved my life," said sharply. "This man found me in the wreckage of my ship. He brought me to his home and healed my wounds. When assassins came to kill me, he fought them alone and won." His eyes widened slightly. He looked at Danny more carefully now, studying him like one might study an unusual animal at a zoo. "A human defeated assassins?" he asked, disbelief clear in his voice. "Two of them confirmed, by himself." Turned to Danny. His expression was strange, a mix of respect and condescension. He nodded slowly. "Then we owe you thanks, human," he said. "You have done a service to the Empire. We will see that you are compensated." The way he said it made Danny feel like a dog being offered a treat for performing a trick. He did not like it, but he stayed quiet. However, did not. "You will treat him with respect," she said, and her voice was cold as ice. "This man showed me more honor than half the nobles in my father's court. He asked for nothing in return. He protected me because it was right, not because he expected a reward. That is something rare, Ambassador, something our people seem to have forgotten." His face went pale. He bowed again, much deeper this time. "Forgive me, Your Highness. I meant no disrespect." Held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded. "See that you remember it." The guards and the ambassador stood in uncomfortable silence, leaned close to Danny and whispered, "I like this version of her." Danny almost laughed, but managed to keep his face straight. Turned to Danny and the coldness left her face, replaced by warmth and sadness. She walked to first and embraced her tightly. "Thank you for everything," she said softly. "For the food, the movies, the conversations, for being my friend." Was crying. "You better come back and visit," she said. "I'll make lasagna." Laughed, a real laugh that surprised the watching. "I would like that." Then she turned to Danny. They stood facing each other, neither quite sure what to say. So much had happened in such a short time. It felt strange that it was ending. "I do not have the words," said finally. "In my language or yours, what you did for me. I will never forget it." Danny shrugged awkwardly. "Like I said, it was the right thing to do." Smiled, "And that is why it matters." She stepped forward and hugged him. It was not the formal gesture of a princess. It was the embrace of a friend saying goodbye. Danny hugged her back, feeling a strange sadness in his chest. When she pulled away, her violet eyes were wet with tears. "I will return," she said. "When I take my throne, I will come back and I will bring a gift worthy of your kindness. You have my word as heir to the Empire." Danny nodded. He did not know what to say, so he said nothing. Walked toward the shuttle, her borrowed clothes looking out of place among the gleaming uniforms of her guards. At the ramp, she turned one last time and raised her hand in farewell. Danny and waved back. The shuttle rose into the sky, climbing higher and higher until it was just a point of light. Then it was gone, swallowed by the massive ship still waiting in the atmosphere. One by one, the ships began to move. They rose silently, climbing toward the stars, leaving Earth behind. Within an hour, the sky was empty again, blue and clear and normal. Danny stood on his porch, looking up at the empty sky. His coffee had gone cold in his hand. His wheat field was ruined, and an alien princess had just flown out of his life. Came to stand beside him. She put her arm around his shoulder. "That was insane," she said. Danny nodded slowly. "Yeah. Think she'll really come back?" Danny thought about's eyes, about the promise in her voice. "Yeah," he said, "I think she will." Then he went inside to wash the dishes, because even after meeting alien royalty, the dishes still needed to be done. 5 years passed since the day the alien ships left Earth. The world had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. The Empire maintained a distant presence, sending diplomats and scientists to learn about humanity. Some technology was shared, gifts that helped cure diseases and create clean energy. Humans took their first real steps toward the stars, building ships that could travel faster than anything before. But not everything was positive. In the halls of the Empire, debates continued about Earth's future. Many voices called for integration, a polite word that meant humanity would become servants of the Empire, controlled and managed like children. The assessment of Earth had been moved forward, and nobody knew what decision would be made. Danny Cole knew about all of this, but only from watching the news. After the events at his farmhouse, reporters and government agents had come looking for him. They wanted interviews, information, anything he could tell them about the alien princess. Danny refused them all. He did not want fame or attention. He just wanted to live his life. So he did. He returned to his work as a mechanic, fixing tractors and trucks and old machines. He went fishing on Sundays and had dinner with when she visited. The world treated him as a footnote in history, the man who saved the alien princess, and that was fine with him. Sometimes at night, he would sit on his porch and look up at the stars. He wondered what she was doing, if she ever thought about him. 5 years was a long time. Surely she had more important things to worry about than a mechanic from Montana. Then one spring morning, everything changed again. Danny was in his kitchen making breakfast when he heard a familiar sound outside. A deep humming noise, like electricity running through the air. He put down his coffee and walked to the window. A shuttle was landing in his wheat field, again. This time, Danny did not feel fear or confusion. He felt something warmer, something like hope. He walked outside and stood on his porch, watching the shuttle settle onto the ground. The wheat swayed in the wind from its engines, creating waves of gold around the silver craft. The door opened and stepped out. She was different now. Her silver skin seemed to glow brighter. Her dark hair was longer, arranged in an elaborate style that spoke of royalty. She wore a flowing gown of deep purple, and on her head sat a crown made of something that looked like crystallized starlight. She was no longer a princess. She was an empress. Behind her came guards and attendants, but waved them back. She walked toward Danny alone, her bare feet touching the earth of his farm. "I told you I would return," she said. Danny looked at her, at the crown, at the shuttle, at the guards watching from a distance. Then he smiled. "You did," he agreed. "I believed you." Smiled back, and for a moment she looked like the woman who had laughed while catching her first fish, who had complained about, who had watched old movies with on rainy afternoons. "My father passed away 2 years ago," she said. "I am empress now." "I heard," Danny said. "I'm sorry for your loss." Nodded. "He was a hard man, but he was my father. I miss him." She paused, then continued. "But I did not come here to talk about the past. I came to keep my promise." She raised her hand, and one of her attendants hurried forward carrying a small device, took it and pressed a button. A hologram appeared in the air between them, showing symbols and text that Danny could not read. "This is a declaration," explained, "signed by me and approved by the Imperial Council. It officially recognizes Earth as a sovereign civilization under the protection of the Empire. Danny blinked. What does that mean? It means no integration, no subjugation, no control. His voice was firm and proud. Your people will be free to develop at your own pace. You will have access to our knowledge and our trade, but you will remain masters of your own world. No one in the Empire will have the authority to interfere with humanity's future. Danny stared at the hologram, not quite believing what he was hearing. This was the most valuable gift imaginable, not gold or technology or power. Freedom. The freedom for his entire species to choose their own path. You did this, he asked quietly, because of what happened here. Nodded. I spent 5 years arguing with my council. They did not understand why I cared so much about a small planet on the edge of the galaxy. But I showed them. I showed them records of human history, your art, your music, your stories. I showed them how you fight against impossible odds and never give up. I showed them kindness in the midst of cruelty, hope in the face of despair. She stepped closer to Danny, her violet eyes meeting his. I showed them you, she said. A man who found a stranger dying in the woods and chose to help, asking nothing in return. A man who fought trained killers to protect someone he barely knew. A man who treated a princess like a person, not a title. Danny felt his throat tighten. He was not used to such words. I'm just a regular guy, he said. No, said firmly. You are what humanity can be at its best, and your species deserves the chance to become that on your own terms. She reached into her gown and produced a small box. Inside was a vial filled with glowing blue liquid. I have one more gift, she said. Something personal just for you. This is a medical treatment. If you take it, yours will be extended by several centuries. You will live long enough to see the stars, Danny. You will see what your kindness helped protect. Danny looked at the vial, then at. He did not know what to say. It was too much, too big, too impossible. Why, he managed to ask. Smiled softly. Because you deserve to see the future you helped create, and because, she hesitated, a hint of purple appearing on her silver cheeks, because I would like to see you again, many times over many years. Before Danny could respond, a car came speeding down the road and skidded to a stop near the farmhouse. Jumped out, her eyes wide with shock and excitement. I saw the shuttle from town, she shouted, running toward them. Then she saw and stopped. Oh my God, is that you? You look, wow. Laughed a warm and happy sound. Hello, it is good to see you. Ran forward and hugged the Empress of 1,000 worlds, completely ignoring all rules of royal behavior. Hugged her back just as tightly. I heard about your father, said. I'm so sorry. Thank you, replied. I have missed you, both of you. Looked between Danny and, noticing the vial in Danny's hand, and the way was looking at him. Okay, I need someone to explain what's happening, she said. Danny laughed, really laughed for the first time in years. It's a long story, but first, he looked at, are you hungry? Makes really good lasagna. His face lit up with joy. I have been thinking about that lasagna for 5 years. Grinned and grabbed his hand. Then come inside. I'll make enough for an army or an empire, whatever. The three of them walked into the small farmhouse together. Outside, guards and attendants watched in confusion as their empress disappeared into a human building to eat pasta. That evening they sat around Danny's old table, eating lasagna and drinking cheap wine. They talked about everything and nothing, catching up on 5 years of life. Told them about becoming empress. Told her about her work at the hospital. Danny did not say much, but he smiled more than he had in years. Outside, the sun set over Montana, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. Somewhere beyond that sky, stars waited, worlds waited, a future waited. But in this moment, in this small farmhouse, the future of 2 civilizations sat around a table with pasta sauce on their lips and laughter in their hearts. Danny looked at the simple warmth of this impossible evening. He had never expected a reward. He had never wanted one. He had just done what felt right, helping someone who needed help. But sometimes, the universe rewards kindness in ways you never expect. And sometimes, the best rewards are the friends you make along the way.